More data does not mean more knowledge. The opposite idea feels almost inevitable, because every new image, every new archive, every new catalog gives the impression of adding another piece of reality to the world, as if reality were a puzzle completed only by accumulating tiles. And indeed, if you look at the history of modern astronomy, progress seems to coincide with a single thing: more light collected, longer exposure times, more sky surveyed, more pixels stored. Yet there comes a point where this intuition, so solid, begins to wobble. That point arrives when data stops being an extension of our gaze and becomes an environment in which our gaze no longer knows how to orient itself. The paradox is simple, and almost cruel. An archive can contain real phenomena and at the same time contain no understanding of those phenomena. It can preserve thousands of rare events, yet fail to offer the right question to find them. An archive is not a map. It is an ocean. And when the ocean expands, the act of searching does not magically turn into an act of understanding. This is where an experiment comes into play that seems to speak about astronomy, but is really about our relationship with reality. The European Space Agency has shown what happens when one truly attempts to read a massive archive like Hubble's. A group of researchers used an AI-assisted method to sift through nearly 100 million image cutouts, small windows of sky extracted from decades of observations. In a very short time, the system returned a list of over 1,000 anomalous-looking objects, and hundreds of these had never been formally discussed in the scientific literature. The number is striking because it does not describe a new observation, but a new ability to navigate what already exists. As if, for years, the universe had remained hidden not behind distance, but behind sheer quantity. At first glance, the easiest reading is, AI sees better. But that is the least interesting interpretation. The algorithm has no eyes, no sense of wonder, no context. What it does have is a different strategy for turning a mass of images into a list of candidates. The point is not that the machine is more intelligent than the astronomer. The point is that, when you produce enough data, the astronomer can no longer afford to be an explorer navigating by sight. They become a manager of priorities, a curator of attention, someone who must decide where to look before even beginning to look. And in an ocean of images, that decision is already half the science. To understand why this changes everything, we need to pause on a single word: anomaly. In astronomy, an anomaly is not necessarily something entirely new. It can be an object captured 100 times before, but never noticed because it did not fit the categories being searched for. It is like a sentence written in a book that no one reads, not because it is incomprehensible, but because no one is looking for that sentence. Since it became operational, Hubble has produced such an immense volume of observations that it has turned the sky into a historical archive. But a historical archive is not an active laboratory until someone enters it with a criterion. And that criterion is usually human. We look for what we know how to name. This is where the difference between more data and more knowledge becomes tangible. A human being explores with a vocabulary. Even when we are creative, even when we hope to be surprised, we carry with us a set of recognizable forms: spiral galaxies, ellipticals, collisions, gravitational lenses, gas disks, clusters. Every label is useful. It allows us to measure, compare, build theories. But every label is also a filter, because it renders invisible anything that does not sufficiently resemble a known example. In a small dataset, the filter helps. In a vast one, the filter becomes a cage. A method that sifts through an archive looking for oddities works differently. It does not begin with a list of types we want to find, but with the slipperier notion of what feels off. Instead of asking where an object of a given class is, it asks which objects, among all others, fall outside the distribution, outside typical behavior, outside the family. It is an extremely subtle yet radical shift in perspective. It moves science from target hunting to building a map of strangeness. And a map of strangeness is not the same as a map of discoveries. It is a list of promises, and many promises turn out to be false. But some do not. Here comes the first conceptual fracture. When a machine flags an anomaly, it is not saying this is important. It is saying this is rare compared to what I have seen. But rare does not mean meaningful. An instrumental reflection, a processing artifact, a field edge, a chance overlap can all look strange. This is why AI, on its own, is not a discovery engine. It is an attention engine. It hands you a list of places to look. And suddenly you realize that the main obstacle was not the sky. It was our ability to allocate attention in a sensible way. Imagine the archive as a city. The full images are neighborhoods, the cutouts are windows. 100 million windows mean 100 million possible stories. But a story becomes knowledge only when it is connected to other stories, when it is measured, compared, explained. Without these steps, a window remains a fragment. And modern science produces fragments at such a pace that the connection between fragments has become the scarce resource. It is no longer light. It is meaning. This explains why the phrase AI sees better is a shortcut. The issue is not vision. The issue is the management of the invisible, that is, everything we do not look at because we do not know it exists. For decades, Hubble was interrogated with specific questions, often brilliant, often revolutionary. But every question creates a cone of light and leaves the rest in shadow. Meanwhile, the archive kept growing. And within that growth accumulated side events, details, marginal objects, structures no one was searching for, not because they were impossible to see, but because they were not tied to an explicit request. An archive, by itself, does not generate curiosity. Curiosity has to be designed. And here the discussion shifts from astronomy to something broader. We live in an age where measurement precedes interpretation. We record before we understand. We store before we select. We build sensors so powerful that they produce a world denser than our capacity to name it. It is a silent transformation. Observed reality no longer coincides with understood reality. And as this gap widens, a new space opens up, one in which knowledge is no longer a simple act of discovery, but an act of navigation. The decisive step is to understand that selection is not a technical step. It is an epistemological act. When you choose what to look at, you choose what can exist for you. If your selection method favors what is already known, the world will mostly return confirmations. If it favors the strange, the world will return noise, and, within that noise, a few seeds of novelty. It is a delicate balance. Too much rigidity, and you see nothing unexpected. Too much openness, and you lose the ability to distinguish the trivial from the profound. And just when it seems clear, an even sharper constraint enters the scene. The machine worked on cutouts, not full scenes. It observed the sky through windows, not landscapes. This choice is necessary to make the problem tractable, but it creates a side effect. Some anomalies are anomalies only because you see a detail isolated from its context. Others, on the contrary, become invisible because they require context to be recognized. A strange light curve might be a gravitational lens, or a local defect, or the trace of a background galaxy that, seen in full, would be obvious. The fragment, on its own, is both powerful and dangerous, powerful because it lets you scan everything, dangerous because it forces you to interpret without a horizon. This is a profound lesson, and it does not concern Hubble alone. Every time we turn a complex world into a collection of pieces, we gain speed and lose semantics. It is the same problem when we analyze genes as isolated sequences, patients as rows in a database, markets as numbers in a time series, behaviors as clicks. I can sift, sort, find correlations. But understanding does not arise from correlation. It arises when a correlation is anchored to a mechanism, a story, a why. And that why is not automatically contained in the data. The why is a bridge we build. Here lies the core of your statement. Searching more data does not mean understanding what exists. It is a counterintuitive truth because data appears objective. And in a narrow sense, it consists of measurements. But measurements without a conceptual grid are just intensities, coordinates, shapes. An archive does not tell you what matters. It only tells you what has been recorded. And what has been recorded can far exceed what the scientific community, at a given moment, is ready to recognize as something. In this scenario, AI becomes as much an amplifier of the problem as a solution. It amplifies it because, by making total scanning possible, it increases the number of candidates, and therefore the portion of the world that demands attention. It is like turning on a brighter light in a messy room. You do not just see what you were looking for. You also see the chaos. And suddenly you realize that the difficulty was not the darkness. It was the order. At this point, the most interesting question is not how many anomalies have been found. The question is, what happens next? Because next comes the human. Next come hours of verification, comparison, interpretation, simulation. Next comes the slow work of determining whether a strangeness is a rare physical phenomenon or an artifact. And when a significant portion of the flagged objects has never been discussed in the literature, this does not automatically mean they are revolutionary. It means the literature is a bottleneck. It means the way science publishes, catalogs, and disseminates knowledge was built for an era when candidates were few. Now they are too many. This leads to a quiet reversal of the very concept of discovery. For centuries, to discover meant to find something no one had ever seen. Today, more and more often, to discover means to notice something that had already been seen and recorded, but not recognized as significant. It is a huge difference. In one case, discovery depends on the external world. In the other, it depends on our ability to interrogate our own past. The telescope is no longer just an instrument of observation. It has become a machine that produces archives, and science is shifting toward those who know how to read them. But reading archives is not a neutral act. It requires an operational definition of what you are looking for. Even when you say I am not looking for something specific, I am looking for anomalies, you have still decided what counts as an anomaly. You have chosen a similarity metric, a threshold, a way of representing an image in numbers. Every step is a hypothesis disguised as technique. And this is why AI should not be told as an oracle that reveals. It should be told as a tool that imposes new questions, and sometimes new illusions. There comes a point where this story becomes almost vertiginous. If the reality we can know depends on the criteria by which we choose where to look, then data production is not just recording. It is a proliferation of potential realities. Every archive contains far more possible realities than we will ever actualize through understanding. And paradoxically, the more the archive grows, the more the portion of the universe that exists only as uninterpreted possibility expands. This is especially true for the sky, because the sky is vast and indifferent, and Hubble has been observing for decades in hundreds of different directions. But it also applies to any field where we accumulate high-resolution observations. In medicine, millions of diagnostic images; in biology, billions of sequences; in climate science, decades of continuous measurements; in economics, streams of transactions. In all these cases, the illusion is the same. If we have everything, we will know everything. In reality, having everything also means having an enormous number of things we do not yet know we need to know. And this is where AI, when it works well, does something very specific. It does not replace understanding, it redraws the frontier of ignorance. It shows you where the outliers accumulate. It forces you to look at the edges of your categories. And the edges are often where new ideas are born, because that is where definitions begin to fail. In science, definitions are provisional bridges. They hold until they break. Anomalies are the stress points where the bridge creaks. If this text ended here, it might sound like a celebration of mystery. But the sharpest point is another. Understanding may become the slowest and most expensive phase of the entire scientific process. Not because it is harder in an absolute sense, but because the phase of candidate generation has become too fast. The rhythm has inverted. Observation used to be difficult, and interpretation followed. Now observation is easy, and interpretation is the bottleneck. And when a bottleneck tightens, what passes through it defines what we call knowledge. So the implicit question that lingers, almost a warning, is this: if machines help us find what we were not looking for, who decides what is worth pursuing? Which anomalies will become new categories, new theories, new objects in textbooks? And how many will remain forever as provisional labels in a database, seen by a neural network and forgotten by everyone else? The story of Hubble's archive, sifted window by window, suggests an uneasy answer. Increasing the power of sensors is not enough. We must increase the power of our questions. We must build tools that not only find, but make what they find interrogable. Because between a strange object and a discovery lies a long path. Verifying, connecting, modeling, interpreting. I shortens the first part. But in doing so, it makes the second part more visible. And it forces us to confront a truth that the age of data tends to conceal. We can be surrounded by recorded realities and still remain very far from understanding what we are actually looking at. If you've made it this far, it means you value curiosity as much as we do. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like, write a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support what we do. Your presence truly makes a difference. Until the next exploration.